Joined now by another Secretary of State, General Colin Powell, who was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under Bush 41. General, Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us this morning. I saw you call President Bush the perfect American. Explain what you meant by that.
I thought he was a perfect American in terms of how he served the country in so many different capacities, in Congress, as the envoy to China, in business, all the things that he did throughout his life, to include being CIA director, you name it, he did it, and then he became vice president for 8 years and then president of the United States. But throughout that entire period, he never forgot who he was. He never let it all go to his head. He was a man of great humility. He was humble. My experience with him for a total of 6 years, really, 2 years as national security advisor to he and President Reagan, and then 4 years as his chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was always kind. He was always contained within himself. He didn't let emotions get on top of him. And frankly, he was a product of his parents, who told him, don't show off, George. Just always remember, you're humble. You work for people. You serve people. So I think he was a perfect president. Now, he didn't win a second time, but that was that's the subject of another discussion, not the guy. As Jim Baker he will be seen as one of the best ones. I agree with Jim Baker on that one.
He was also the last president to serve in combat. How did that shape his work as commander-in-chief?
He knew what combat was all about. He knew that combat meant the death of people on your side and people on the other side. And so he wanted to avoid a war. People think about Desert Storm, but you have to remember that throughout that period when we were building up the force in Desert Shield, getting ready for Desert Storm, he was doing everything. He and Jim Baker were doing everything to see if we could avoid a war by getting the Iraqis just to leave Kuwait. And at the last minute, Jim, of course, went to meet with Tariq Aziz, the prime minister of Iraq, and he wouldn't agree to it. And then the war came. And he had organized that war in a way that was straightforward and direct. We had a specific mission: kick the Iraqi army out of Kuwait, restore the government of Kuwait, and then don't stay there, come on out. And as a result of that policy statement, he was able to get the UN on board. Almost every nation in the world joined in the coalition, either with troops on the ground or with political support. We even had Gorbachev, then the head of the Soviet Union, which still existed, to be part of that political coalition. And because he made it a precise conflict defined in terms of space and time, he got the support he needed. And we were able to say to him, Mr. President, we guarantee the success of this operation, because he gave us everything we need, everything General Schwarzkopf asked for, everything that I took to the president. He would listen carefully. He would ask questions. He knew what war was all about, and he would give us what we needed, and we did what we said we would do.
You mentioned Gorbachev. The temptation to crow when the Berlin Wall was falling must have been so great.
Not for George Herbert Walker Bush, because, as I said a few moments ago, it was in his DNA not to gloat, not to be a braggart. It didn't mean he wasn't competitive. He was very competitive, especially with horseshoes and other sports. But in matters like this, he felt it was his place to do the right thing and not gloat, not shout over somebody's grave. And I still remember, not only with the end of the Cold War and his treatment of Gorbachev and working on the unification of Germany, but after the Desert Storm, which was very successful, the American people loved it. They never thought their armed forces really could be this good, and we were. But when we started having the parades, especially when they decided to have a parade in New York, ticker tape parade up Broadway, the traditional ticker tape New York parade, President Bush said, I won't be there. You won't be there? Why not? It's a parade for troops. General Schwarzkopf, the troops, the chairman, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Secretary Cheney. I will not attend. This is for them, not for me. And then he attended the one in Washington. But I can think of very few people that I have known at senior positions who would have passed up an opportunity like that.
What do you hope Americans take today from his life?
A life of quality, a life of honor, a life of honesty, a life of total concern for the American people. Everything he thought of, everything he did in public life was always directed to helping the American people. He was a patriot. He demonstrated that in war. He demonstrated that in peace. He was the most qualified person with respect to foreign policy ever to serve as President of the United States of America. And he was able to demonstrate that for the 4 years of his service. And it was my privilege to be his chairman for those 4 years, but also to have served with he and President Reagan for 2 years, the last 2 years of the administration, And frankly, that's what set me up to become chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Mr. Secretary, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, George.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.